In today's Locked On Pelicans, have the Pels given up? Because that beatdown by the Pistons looked like a team that's given up. I'll explain what's going on and why it goes beyond coaching in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans, plus a Trey Murphy injury. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans at NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Here with y'all after the Pelicans tied their worst loss in franchise history. That is by the score of, get this one, 127-81 to the Detroit Pistons. Trey Murphy also playing less than a minute, going down with an injury. We'll give you an update on him in the next segment here. Mondays, am I right? All right, we're going to break down, did the Pelicans quit in this game? Have they quit on the season? It goes beyond coaching, and I want to kind of get into that a little bit here. We'll give you an update on the Trey Murphy injury. May as well switch to the basketball tournament in college because, well, here's some guys you need to keep an eye on because if the Pelicans are going to play like this, that's what we need to focus on. So we got a lot to cover in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Prize Picks. Download the app and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And of course, thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen. Today and every day, we're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. Let me know what you thought about this game in the comments down below. So this is arguably the worst game I think I've ever witnessed the Pelicans play. That first half was absolutely abysmal, and you knew this. By the time the first quarter was done and the Pelicans scored just 13 points, look, you knew this one was done. They lost that quarter 35-13. You were down 22 basically off the jump. Second quarter, 28-19. They put forth a valiant effort in the third to claw back 6 points. Not that much there, but still something, before getting blown out in the fourth. They had 3 quarters here where they didn't eclipse 20 points. It's about as bad of a performance as you could possibly get here. This is just a disgusting loss. I think it's actually the second worst loss they've ever had, tied for them. 46 points here. Just garbage, right? Like, if you were there and I was in the arena, you should have left early. Honestly, they should probably give refunds for a performance like that. It doesn't work like that, but my goodness, just an atrocious display. And as I was tweeting about it during the game, one of the things that people were replying to me about, and look, people around me in the arena were talking about this. Person in front of me literally fell asleep. I should even mention that. Literally fell asleep at this game. That doing the thing where like your head goes down and you like pop back up right around halftime. It was kind of funny in a way. So, you're valid to ask, like, has this team given up? Or you're valid just to claim they have given up. And I don't exactly think that they've given up, in the sense that you're thinking they don't care, they're just trying to go through the motions, that Willie Green's not getting through them to anything like that. I think what you're seeing here goes beyond coaching. And it comes down to this, and this will be any professional player you talk to, any coach, anything like that. They all say the same thing across like any sport. The way I view it is losing can be like a disease. It kind of permeates your team. It gets involved in everything, and it just makes you a mess, truthfully. And in a season like the Pelicans are having, when they've been losing as much as they've had in the fashion that they've done it in, and look, a lot of it, mainly, in my opinion, is still due to injuries. You have a nearish similar team to last year where you were supposed to upgrade some pieces. There were flaws. We'll touch on those in a second here. And you almost won 50 games. And you didn't have any of these kind of issues. The reason why they didn't reach their full potential last year was for other reasons, but they never really quit. It's basically the same roster, it's the same head coach. That factors into this here. When you just start losing, it's just that you realize you have nothing to play for and you just don't try as hard. I don't think that's the same as quitting. When I watched them out there on the court in this game, I didn't think that they were not trying at all, right? It's not like they had given up. They were trying to defend. They've just been a bad defense all year long, and that allowed the Detroit Pistons to easily just get into the paint, right? Them getting into the paint, scoring the way that they did, especially early on. Detroit had like 20 points in the paint in the first quarter alone. Just easy lobs, easy attacks, just nothing, no resistance there. That's been the issue all year. Just because it's late in the year and you're getting blown out doesn't mean you stop caring, you stop trying. You're just not good at it in the first place. And then you watched them offensively, and Willie Green said it after the game in his post-game media availability. He said, this team looks like they forgot how to play basketball. And truthfully, they did. And this isn't exactly a Willie Green thing. Look, I'm not trying to excuse Willie Green here. I don't think he should be the head coach next year. I've been consistent on that, said that for a while now. But when I watched this game, this was a team that just was lacking or not even trying to use basketball IQ. They were not trying to take care of the basketball. In the first quarter, first half alone, they dribbled off their foot near double digits, near about 10 times. That led to a bunch of turnovers, right? Just dribbling off their foot. It rolls away. The Pistons pick it up. They run down for a fast break. That's not a coaching thing, right? Like, that's not a coach not getting through to the players or anything like that. That's just players not, partially not caring, just not trying nearly as hard, right? Those are the type of things that you see when you lose. When there's 50-50 balls, are guys going to fight hard for them? Especially when they just saw Trey Murphy get injured in the beginning. He played under a minute in this game. Basically on the first play of the game, first possession of the game, he got hurt. Why should guys kind of throw their bodies around for this? We'll talk about that in the next segment here. This is a decision the Pelicans are going to have to make here when it comes to this. So guys, when you're losing, when there's nothing to play for the most part, for a lot of these guys, there's some guys need to play better and, need to do more. But for the most part, people are going to be safe. So you just don't care as much. It doesn't mean you've necessarily quit. I think you could call it that, but in a sense, it's not like they weren't trying. Some of them are just bad, and you're like playing 20% worse than you normally would. And that's a big part of the problem, and that's what you saw in this game. All of the turnovers, all of those issues that they had, just stupid little frickin' things that if you actually cared, you could clean up pretty quickly. But losing is a disease, and it permeates all kind of aspects of your play on the court. So you're just going to try 20% less. And 20% against a Pistons team that's been slumping a little bit, but overall is really good and has had one of the best defenses in the league since the new year, is going to be part of a problem. And that's how you end up where you did in this game, with a Pistons team that just straight up wanted it more. And you're going to look like a team that basically forgot how to play basketball. And that's what you saw here. So on the coaching side of things here, right? Like, once you start losing like this, there's nothing any coach can do. There's nothing any coach would be able to do in a time like this, right? Sometimes it is what it is. Look at two teams here. We're going to look at Miami and we're going to look at the San Antonio Spurs. Miami Heat right now, I believe, are on a 7-game losing streak. They have Eric Spoelstra, who I think is maybe the best coach currently in the league. They've lost 8 in a row. My bad. I think they lost tonight then. Miami's lost 8 in a row since trading away Jimmy Butler. Just not having the talent to do it. But look, you still have Bam Adebayo. You have Khalil Ware, who we like to go into the draft. You have Tyler Hero. You have some of these other good players. And they're still losing. Once you just start losing and getting into that funk, even Eric Spoelstra can't pull you out of it. Go to the San Antonio Spurs the year that they drafted Victor Wembanyama, where they were somewhat tanking. But you think Greg Popovich cares about that? No, he wants to win games. You could argue he's the greatest NBA coach of all time. That year, they were 29th in offense, 30th in defense, and they were truly, truly bad. Just absolute garbage in like every statistical category there was. You think Pop forgot how to coach? You think players were tuning out Pop? No, they were just bad and they were trying a little bit less. And that's what it kind of comes down to in something like this. And ultimately, given we want them to tank, and we do, you don't want them to lose in this fashion by any account. Does it ultimately matter? The answer is probably no. And if we're going, well, it doesn't really matter. The players are thinking the same thing. So why are they going to try? Why are they going to do it? So in one sense, no, they haven't like quit. But in another sense, like, yeah, they've kind of quit and that's to be expected because you're seeing the Miami Heat kind of quit in that sense too, and some of these other teams as well just kind of give up in a sense. But I wouldn't say it's like, they're playing matador defense where it's like, go on through or whatever, right? Like they're trying. Just usually if you're kind of losing all of these games in the first place, you're a bad team, and that's going to kind of then get expounded upon, snowball a little bit this late in the season when there's nothing left to play for. So let's get into the Trey Murphy injury, because I have a take on this. And I think it's going to tie to tanking, and it's going to tie to what we need to see the Pelicans do the remainder of the season. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I've got this ongoing problem. I just don't have time between work, life, doing a podcast, going to Pelicans games, trying to eat healthier. You're just kind of constantly feeling stressed out. So I'd go to the grocery store, buy things I didn't need, and then up with no actual time to cook. And then sticking to whatever health goals you might have, what I have, it's a struggle too. Everything's going to change when you discover Hungry Root. Honestly, it's been a game changer for me. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. And that's really important to me when I'm up late doing all this stuff. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and a nutritionist all in one. They take care of your grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on your tastes and your health goals, from anti-inflammatory to high protein like what I like, to gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great, all delivered straight to your door. And it's been a huge time saver for me and can make eating healthier so much simpler. So you're going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/lockedonnba and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's hungryroot.com/lockedonnba, code LOCKEDONNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/lockedonnba, code LOCKEDONNBA. Do not miss out. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans brought to you by Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder where'd all your money go, between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's really easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. So you can track all your accounts, investments, spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. And it's going to give you really great insight. I ran everything through it and I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. And now I'm going to budget smarter and save even more. And managing with your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, stay on the same page without all the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well. And Locked On Pelicans has a newsletter. Daily one-stop shop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Pelicans newsletter. So let's talk about Trey Murphy getting injured. That's fun. Seriously, what an awful game for the Pelicans on so many levels. And an injury to a player, Trey Murphy, second leading scorer of the year, who's been one of the brightest spots. I thought I was going to make it without coughing. I was doing so well. Is not the way that we hoped this game was going to go. Trey Murphy played 49 seconds in this one before diving for a loose ball after he dribbled it off of his foot and then ended up injuring his right shoulder. He immediately went to the locker room, looked to be visibly in a good amount of pain. They took x-rays. The x-rays came back negative, which is good. And now we got to wait for updates here. Frankly, we don't have any just yet. That'll probably come out in the next day or so as the Pelicans are on the road. We'll see if Trey Murphy even travels. If he does, if we see him on the bench, that's a good sign. But this, obviously, I don't need to tell you, it sucks. This sucks. This just absolutely sucks. But here's where Pelicans are going to need to make some decisions going forward. Trey Murphy is leading the team in minutes per game, playing almost He's playing over 35 and a half minutes, 35.6 minutes per game. In a year where you already have, what is their record? You're 18 and 51. Look, Trey's got his contract. He's not going to win any award. He's not going to win Most Improved or any of the awards at the end of the season here. Is this someone that needs to be playing that heavy of minutes? The season's lost. We just went over it, right? Like, what's there left to play for? There are things that you want to see them do, certainly. But in the grand scheme of things, this year, for the majority of the season, has been about next year. Why is Trey Murphy playing almost 36 minutes per game? Is there any need for that at this point in time? Now, you can think of it from a tanking perspective. You want to lose more games, so that's maybe a good thing if he doesn't play, because this is someone who's averaging 21.6 points per game. He's been playing particularly well for the team. He's shooting well. He's gotten better as the season's gone on. He's answered every question you might have. He has done he's shown you the growth in the ways that you wanted to see it. There's nothing more left for him to prove, for the Pelicans to have him prove, or anything like that. There's probably no need for him to be playing that many minutes. Now, while I don't think this injury to Trey Murphy is the result of playing too many minutes, we've seen that with some of these other guys. Kyrie Irving this season is a good example of that, going back to DeMarcus Cousins with the New Orleans Pelicans. When he got hurt, was probably a factor of bodily fatigue and playing more minutes than he ever had before. Trey, we're not overly worried about that. This injury was him diving on the floor, basically getting hit in the arm in some capacity, and that's that. But at the same point, when you've got nothing left to play for, does he need to be playing that many minutes here? Against the San Antonio Spurs, in a loss, he played 37 minutes. Orlando, a 20-point loss, 34 and a half minutes. Clippers was a win, 36 minutes. Memphis, a 3-point loss, almost 37 minutes. Does he need to be playing that many minutes at this point in time? And honestly, the answer is probably no. One of the questions I've been asked a lot is the team going to shut guys down? This injury to Trey Murphy probably means you need to do that in some capacity, that in a way that you weren't doing before. There's no need to risk any sort of injury to these guys at this point in the season. Will the NBA be upset? Yeah. But if Trey Murphy gets this injury, you can conceivably have cover to shut him down the rest of the way. Zion can probably pick up an injury, and you can shut him down when you need to. And at the very least, I would expect these guys shut down for the final week of the regular season. You have a couple of games in there. Do they need to play? Probably not. Shut them down. Be smart. And at this point, it comes about managing players' health going forward. There's just not a need to risk some of these injuries on the team, in my opinion. And so playing these guys heavy minutes, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing? Look, Trey doesn't need to prove anything. There's nothing we need to see from him that's going to change our minds about him for better or worse here. But there are other guys that maybe need that, right? Antonio Reeves got 17 minutes in this. Good. He should play. Jordan Hawkins played almost 28 minutes. And look, everyone's minutes were low because of the blowout loss here. But maybe Hawkins should be the one averaging 36 minutes per game, going forward, instead of Trey Murphy, to just get him some play. He has not played well. He played terribly in this game. Maybe he's the one that you need to give that extended run to. Karlo Makovic is another one of those guys. Yves Missi, as much as you're comfortable with, but he's kind of proven it, right? If you look at it over the past, I just picked up 15 games here for Jordan Hawkins. Why is he only playing 23 minutes? Get him up to 30. Maybe he's not ready for 30. Maybe there could be reasons behind it. Don't get me wrong, but at a certain point, he's got something to prove. Trey doesn't. Zion actually does, in my opinion, have something to prove, so you do need to play him. Does CJ have anything he needs to prove? Probably not. You can dial his minutes back over some of this. There are guys who do have things to prove, players who do have things to prove, and players that don't. So lean into that. Trey's done it all this year. Let's not risk one of the future pieces of this team getting hurt. Now, maybe Trey wants to play. And you know what? Knowing him a little bit, he absolutely does. Dude wants to go out, wants to play, wants to win, wants to play well, and kind of prove his spot in the league. I think he's done that. Maybe he disagrees. That's fine. But at a certain point, the team's got to make the best decision. Zion was saying, I can play back-to-backs, I can do all this, but I'm an employee of the Pelicans, and they're not letting me do it. At a certain point, even if these guys want to play, you got to save them from themselves just a little bit. And I enjoy watching Trey Murphy play, and I enjoy watching Zion play, and I don't like rooting for losses at all. This season has sucked. But you do need to do what's in the best interest of the franchise going forward. This injury, again, not tied to his heavy minutes or anything like that, though, just makes you want. And look, this would have happened even if he was on a minutes restriction, played 20 minutes. It happened in the first minute of the game. But what if this had happened in the fourth quarter of a blowout loss? How annoyed would we all be, and how mad would we all be about this? That's something that the Pelicans are going to need to start figuring out and balancing, and maybe this Trey Murphy injury, while we don't ever want injuries on anybody, on any team, and any player, maybe this is the wake-up call they kind of needed from that sort of thing, because there's no reason he needs to be playing that much. It's about next season, which is going to be about prioritizing a draft pick, which is actually important here in this draft with some of the guys that you could go and get because they look like they're going to be pretty good. That all matters here with the Pelicans kind of in a tanking battle with a couple of other teams. So play the young guys, play the guys that have things to prove, play your other guys a little bit too, just not as much as you're doing. And everyone's going to win from this sort of situation, I think. So coming up next, let's talk tournament. Let's talk about players you want to be watching in the postseason. A couple guys that I want you to keep an eye on here when it comes to them because I'm going to be watching them. There's a ton of Duke guys that I'm going to be watching here. There's a couple other players that I want you to potentially pay attention to in the first round, and also two guys you're not going to see. I'll explain what I mean. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball season is heating up except in New Orleans, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With Prize Picks, it's super simple. You just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. And it's super easy to use, available in over 30 states, and lets you mix and match projections across different sports. So maybe you want to take Luka Doncic for more than 25 points or Jason Tatum for more than 8 rebounds, and Prize Picks is going to make it simple. You can set your lineup in less than 60 seconds, and then you stay engaged all game long. And when you win, your money hits your account in as little as 15 minutes, no waiting around. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Now, quick note, by the way, from the bracket breakdown for Locked On. You got to see this. This is awesome if you're on YouTube, but you'll hear it here on the audio side of things. But there's a video I'm going to play for y'all.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
How cool was that, by the way, here, studio show? We've done a couple of these before. This one, like Amazon was like, hey, we want Locked On to do something for us, which I think is pretty cool. Makes me very proud to be part of the network here. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. For your second listen, by the way, go check out Locked On Saints. Derek Carr, they interviewed Cam Ward at the Combine, huh? I'm a little intrigued by that idea. Ross Jackson's going to make sense of everything black and gold over at the Locked On Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm coughing less. We're improving there, aren't we? That's only 2 so far this game. Not hacking up a lung, so I'm feeling a little bit better, I guess, in some capacity here. So let's switch gears because, look, there's really nothing. There's things to play for here. And one of the things the Pelicans need to play for, by the way, is a good draft pick. Ideally, the 4th spot. If you can get 3rd, that's even better. Improve your lottery odds by minimizing the spots that you can fall down. Should bad luck happen to you in the lottery, that minimizes some of the catastrophe that it could be. So look, Cooper Flagg's going to go number 1 overall in the draft. You don't need to watch him. You don't, unless you're curious about it. But it's not like he's an intriguing prospect going into he's not improving his draft stock when you're already number 1 overall. And there's zero way he's going to stay in college. That's BS. If anyone tries to scare you with something like that, just like Point him to the show where where we broke down the money, but there's no way Cooper Flagg's staying at Duke for a year. That won't happen. The other two guys at the top 3 of the draft that are going to go in there, at least in the top 4, top 5, are the two players out of Rutgers. Dylan Harper, the point guard, shooting guard, and then Ace Bailey, the small forward. Rutgers is not in any postseason tournament at all. They didn't make the big dance. They declined an invite to the NIT, and then the collegiate basketball crown, whatever one Tulane Roll Wave is playing in, by the way, which I think is pretty cool. The other new one that Fox Sports is putting on that's in Vegas with a number of teams that I'm actually kind of excited to watch. So they're not going to improve or hurt their draft stock with a postseason performance because they're not in the postseason. But there are some other guys that I think are rather intriguing that I want you to keep an eye on because good performances from them could end up elevating their draft stock here. Look, I could mention VJ Edgecombe, but I think he's going to go in the top 4 no matter what. I think that's your top 4 is Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe. And that's probably how I would rank them. I could potentially put VJ Edgecombe in there at 3 instead of 4. I'm not the biggest Ace Bailey guy, though I acknowledge he is really good. I just don't see a fit on this team. Dylan Harper, I think, would fit like a dream. Cooper Flagg will fit anywhere. So those are my top 4. After that, and it's really Cooper Flagg and then tier 2 of Dylan Harper, Bailey, and Edgecombe. After that, I think it is fairly wide open, and pretty strong performances from players can open people's eyes in certain capacity here. So I want to highlight a few of those guys as I'm typing in one right now, because I think they could fly up draft boards or slide down depending on what's going on here. So let's start with Duke because they have a number of guys that look like they could be pretty good in my opinion here. And that's something that is worth keeping in mind and that you probably want to pay attention to in this one. So we're going to throw Cooper Flagg out. The first guy is Con Knipple, and he is someone that I think has done a pretty good job for them as just kind of an all-around scorer. And in the tournament against Georgia Tech the other day, he had 28 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, and played really good defense in that game while making 2 threes and getting to the line 13 times. You know, Cooper Flagg has been injured. He will be playing, it sounds like, in their opening round game on Friday. So Con Knipple, though, as someone who's kind of taken on a larger role for Duke as the season has gone on, is someone I'm really intrigued by. He's just kind of like a do-it-all guard wing for them a little bit with really good size at 6'7". He's played really well this year and played even better in conference play. And you've known, the longtime listeners, the everydayers, that I really value conference play. Did you get better, or at least did you stay about the same? Did you not get worse? He got better, particularly shooting-wise, in conference play, shooting 42.4% from 3 compared to just under 40% overall on the season. So he got better in conference play. That stands out to me about this team and that guy, and I think that is someone that you really want to keep an eye on here. You know, their starting center is someone that you want to keep an eye on too, and that's Kaman Malik, and he has looked particularly great too as just a very solid center that rebounds, plays defense, and blocks shots. He hasn't been needed to do much offensively, but he is a big dude at 7'2", and for a team that dramatically needs some size, if he looks like an elite rim protector or more of a rim protector in the tournament here, I think that's something that New Orleans is really going to need to look at because he's definitely going to be up there on draft boards. They also have a couple other guys we don't need to spend a ton of time on. Tyrese Proctor has looked good for them. I think Sion James, formerly Tulane Roll Wave, has looked pretty good as a guy that maybe could be a second-round pick. But if we're looking at guys that are potentially like 5 through 14, so lottery picks, no one else is really going to be in there. Isaiah Evans is one of them too. Derek Queen from Maryland is a guy that I'm also going to keep an eye on because I think he looks really intriguing, and I'm a big Derek Queen guy here. I don't expect Maryland to go too far in the tournament or anything like that, but he has looked good overall and has been able to just really score and light it up. And this is someone who does have a little bit of a mini jumper, even if his 3-point percentages don't look pretty good. His free throw percentage has been really good, and that's kind of what you're watching here. But if he carries that Maryland team, That's someone that I think, looks like they can, potentially do some work for him and carry him. And look, he's looked that good for him. He's their leading scorer for him this season here. He was a top 15 guy going into college. He's averaging 16.3 points per game and 9 rebounds and 1.1 blocks. Again, very good size. Conference play has been a little bit down, but overall is right about there with what you expect from him. I see some Karl Anthony Towns in his game a little bit. If Maryland can make a deeper tournament run, this is someone who I think is going to really open people's eyes here and could really improve his draft stock. Another guy that can do that is Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma. The more I've watched this guy, as people have told me to, I've started paying attention. In their 2 tournament games, he put up 29 and 28 points. And he's not afraid to shoot. In the first game against Georgia, he went 4 of 7. Next game, 2 of 11 from 3. But he's got some pretty good numbers as a scoring and kind of lead, kind of combo guard for them as well. So that's someone that, again, if you make a tournament run, I think he's going to shoot up draft boards a little bit, but he needs to be more consistent with his 3-point shot. Size there, though, is really good from him, too. Also, keep an eye on Trey Johnson from Texas. This is someone who's like just probably outside that top tier, but people really like. He's kind of all breaks, no gas when it comes to offense, in my opinion, averaging almost 20 points per game this season. He's a good 3-point shooter as well. He got a little bit better in conference play too. He can get to the foul line. He can make his free throws. Does he give you the defense? Does he give you really anything else other than truly the scoring? Not as much. But if you're looking for just kind of a spark plug guy, look, can easily be him. So keep an eye on all of those players in the tournament. Really watch Duke, I think, is going to be really important because those guys can all shoot up draft boards, especially because we're expecting Duke to have a longer tournament run here. Let me know who you like of all of those players in the comments down below on YouTube. And that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. Rough Monday night. We'll be back tomorrow, talk a little bit more draft, talk more about what matters for the Pelicans. Got a whole lot to cover here on the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. See y'all next time.